Hello, hello. My name is Bob Goodwin, and welcome to the debut episode of Career Club Live here on LinkedIn Live. And so glad that you could join us today. Just a little bit about Career Club. Our mission is to help people get a better job faster. So if you are in job search or actively considering what might be next in your career, or maybe you just want to learn how to build out your professional network better, check us out on career.club. This is a live stream. And so as such, you'll notice on the right-hand side, there's the ability to do chat. We would love to hear from you. So if you're so inclined, just drop in a little note, maybe let us know where you're calling in from. And if you have any questions or comments as we go, we'd love to include you and make this participating with you. I want to do a quick thank you and shout out to my colleague, Heather Zinzer. Heather is the magic behind the scenes here. So the cool branding and just making sure that we've got our act together here technically. Just big shout out to Heather. So thank you. Speaking of technical, this is our first time of doing this on LinkedIn Live. So if there are any technical issues, just work with us here. We'll figure it out together. So with that, I wanted to welcome our guests today. I am over the moon to have my friend and just somebody who I love and respect a ton, Bill Mills, join us today. Bill is the president and CEO of Best Upon Request, a leading concierge service here in Cincinnati, Ohio. And Bill, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Awesome. So depending on how you look at it, Bill either gets the credit or the blame for me being in the whole career consulting strategy business. And we'll get into how that came to be here in a little bit. But I just, as we kind of launch this thing out, I just want to say that, Bill's story is inspirational. The lessons learned from his job search, I think, will be very educational for a lot of folks. As I think about some of the things that people struggle with in career search, I think Bill went through some of those and cracked the code on a lot of them. And so I just know that you're going to get a lot of value out of today. So Bill, what I thought maybe we could do just to kind of help people get to know you a little bit better is go through what I think our mutual friend Rock Robinson likes to call his Fab Five. And so here's sort of the first little learning thing opportunity for our listeners. Our friend Rock Robinson likes to say, people buy from folks they trust, and they trust people they like. And so he's got a neat little format for helping you kind of break the ice. For some of our friends who maybe are a little more introverted or, not totally comfortable in all social situations or meeting new people, this is just such a simple, great way to get to know people and helps you build a little bit of rapport. But it's also going to help you just establish some connections and makes the conversation a whole lot more productive. So with that, Bill, we'll start with number one. And where were you born and raised? Where'd you grow up?
Yep, I am. You can tell by my voice, most people can, that I'm not from here. Grew up in Southeast Kentucky. Pineville was my hometown. I went to college at Eastern Kentucky University. So I kind of stayed in the south and eastern corner of Kentucky for pretty much the first half of my life. And
awesome.
Went out from there.
Very cool. And speaking of people from all around, we've got Markel calling in from Southern California. Hey, Markel. Now, you took question number 3. So you went to Eastern Kentucky University. And what'd you major in and any extracurriculars there?
So I was an English major with a minor in public relations, and I had no clue what I was going to do, but ultimately started my career in manufacturing. And so I went back to EKU to get a master's in manufacturing management. It's kind of half business, half manufacturing program.
Awesome. And then a little bit about your family.
Yep. So the family, as you know, Bob, is kind of the centerpiece of my story. And so It's really important to explain, I guess, that I have one biological daughter. She's 25 years old and is a physician assistant up in Dayton, Kettering area. But I have 4 adopted children, one who is 23, and she's from China. Then I have 2 kids that we adopted in Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And they're now 15 and 16. Mm-hmm. And so they had, some special needs. And honestly, what brought me to Cincinnati, what took me into networking 10 years ago now,
Yep.
was the need to bring my family to Cincinnati. And I'm talking more about that.
We'll talk about that second. Yeah.
Minutes.
And then I'm saying that we got one more, a certain Seattle Seahawks fan.
Yeah. So we have Joshua. He is the Seahawks fan. Yeah. So he kind of runs the family. He tells us who we're going to cheer for. He tells us, and Seattle is at the top of the list. So
that's awesome. And then just real briefly, your career journey.
Yep. So as I mentioned, I started out in manufacturing. Straight out of college, I started out on the assembly line and worked for a global company called Hitachi in the automotive division for many, many years, and for 13 years. And, I had the opportunity to become the CEO of a large charity called Christian Appalachian Project. And so that was my exodus from Hitachi, a return from Central Kentucky back to Eastern Kentucky. I would spend another 6 or 7 years in Eastern Kentucky, but ultimately my wife and I made the decision based upon the needs of our family to come to Cincinnati. And so my career, at a certain point in my life as an adult, my career began to follow my passions, my family's need. And again, I can talk more about that in a second, but my career shifted from manufacturing and then charity, a time in a large charity. I left out, spent a couple of years as part of a McDonald's franchise, and then ultimately came to Cincinnati and joined Best Upon Request. Again,
and do you mind just sharing kind of in 30 seconds or less what Best Upon Request does? Because I think it's such a great service.
Absolutely. We're headquartered in Cincinnati. We're a national concierge service. We provide employee services. It's an employer-paid employee benefit. We also serve healthcare systems. We serve their employees, we serve physician groups, but we also serve patients and their families as a patient experience or an add-on service to support patients and their families in enhancement to the patient experience. And so we're an employer-paid employee benefit. We're a hospital-paid patient experience benefit.
Awesome. And how long have you been there now?
10 years, coming up on 10 years.
Wow. You had black hair, I think, when I met you. Me
That's
too.
not true.
Me too. And then what do you like to do outside of work? What are things that are hobbies, passions?
Yeah, I like to do a lot of things, and I'm passionate about a lot of things. I've narrowed it down for the sake of this call to 4: faith, family, wildlife, and water.
Ooh,
And
nice. I like that.
Yeah, so I'm all about my family, and my faith guides me in leading my family.
Yes.
It's what brought me to Cincinnati. It was a faith journey all the way. And but I've always loved the outdoors. In my earlier years, I hunted a lot. I was a fisherman. I've now resorted to mostly just fishing and just spending as much time on the water as I can with my family.
That is awesome. So let's go ahead and segue, because to your point, your family is a lot of what had to do with you coming to Cincinnati. And, for the people who don't know you and are getting ready to hear what I think is a pretty amazing story, do you mind sharing why you felt like you needed to come to Cincinnati and what sort of provoked you needing to change careers?
Yeah. I go back to a certain pivot point in my relationship with my wife, and we had adopted children. They had special needs. She made regular trips from Eastern Kentucky to Cincinnati to Children's Hospital, 4 hours each way, more or less, multiple times a month. They knew her at one of the local hotels. When we walked in, all the Millses are here. It was that kind of deal, and it became something that was very tiresome and laborious. And over time, it wore on her, it wore on us and our relationship, and just it taxed the family. And one night, probably a Sunday night, after I loaded the Suburban for her to send her off for the week, I remember saying something like, "We ought to just move to Cincinnati." And she looked at me like, "I didn't think you were ever going to figure it out." She denies that, but that's the truth. She more or less said, "Yeah, I was waiting on you to figure it out. We need to go." And I'm like, I didn't mean it, because I had a career. We had just built a home, but it was one of those moments where it's like, we know the right thing to do. It's been obvious for a while what we needed to do. And so my role now is to figure out, how do I get to Cincinnati? How do I transition a career? And how do I transition a family to a place that I've never lived or ever wanted to live, for that matter.
Mm-hmm. And so let's talk about that. So did you come up here part-time? How did you start to manage the logistics of all that?
Bob, for about 4 months, I thought about it, and I couldn't imagine how to get here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a loyal guy, and I was loyal to the guys that I was working with in the McDonald's franchise. And it occurred to me that there's only one way to do this. And so I created my own separation. I resigned. I walked away, took some time off to get my grounding and my bearings.
Yep.
And I came to Cincinnati. And it just so happened that an attorney friend of mine was partners with an attorney in Cincinnati, and he offered, hey, let me connect you to somebody up there. And that started my networking journey. And as you know, I've met a gentleman named Mike Sipple here in Cincinnati, and
Yep.
Mike was a pivotal part of my journey here as well. And he started helping me get connected. But to answer your question, was it part-time or full-time? I came to Cincinnati for probably close to 7-8 months. I came to Cincinnati every Sunday night or Monday morning, and I stayed till Friday, networking all week long, as you know, based on a schedule I had built in the weeks prior.
Yep.
And I did that over and over and over again, like a business trip every single week.
So a couple of things that I think are really relevant for the time that we're in now. You know, there's hashtag Great Resignation, you know, and what you said about like needing 4 months to kind of figure it out a little bit and really kind of have a commitment to this is what I need to do. I think that resonates today with a lot of people, right? You know, the pandemic has really kind of been a catalytic event for folks, and like what's really important to me in my life, you know, and I think like a lot of people, they're catching up to I think my family's a lot more important than maybe I've been giving them, you know, for my time. I think that's one. Two is people thinking about doing a career pivot, right? Like I know what I know. Now you'd already pivoted a couple of times, which I think is really interesting and maybe a different topic for a different day. But, you know, I think that part of your story resonates. And then the next piece I really wanted to pick up on, and you were just sort of talking about planning your weeks, and you were here Monday through Friday. I'd love to just sort of dig down on that one a little bit. And how did you get yourself organized, et cetera?
It's really interesting. Like I said, I had a couple of people who were pivotal in my journey. And what I would say to your listeners is when you are able to make a connection, someone's willing to invest in you, honor those connections, honor those people. And no matter how many people you meet, you're going to ultimately have a handful of those connections that sort of rise to the top. They have more time, interest, and effort to invest in you. You need to be investing in those relationships as well, because they're going to become lifelong friends of yours from now on. And it's been amazing to me to look back over the 10 years and realize that. I realized it in the moment, but the gravity of it couldn't possibly set in. But 10 years later, when I look back, those are people I have breakfast with periodically still to this day. And so
you've been doing LinkedIn Live podcasts with people that you met back in the day.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, in terms of getting organized, I started meeting people and I was keeping records, but it took me about a week or two to go, okay, this is going to snowball and I'm going to lose complete focus. Because what happens when you sit down and start networking with somebody, the first question they ask you typically is, who introduced us? Or they'll reflect back and say, oh, Bob told you or sent you to me. And that's how we got connected. And they want to talk about from the beginning of the conversation, what was the connection point? And I realized very early that people are going to ask me, how do you know so-and-so? Who introduced us? How do you know them? And it just became very evident. I got to have my arms around this. That wasn't a normal process for me every day. I wasn't in the business of meeting 3 or 4 people every day and needing to remember their names and how I knew them or got to know them. And so I created a spreadsheet, and it's very simple. I'm really good at formatting. People, our VP of finance in our company, she gets aggravated at me. We were talking about it just yesterday. She's all about the numbers and keeping everything aligned like that. I'm all about how it looks. And so I created a spreadsheet that was very simple. It had a number, a name, a company, their job title, and another number. Yep. And the second number tells me who it was up in my spreadsheet somewhere that introduced me to this person. So I literally just started tracking a network on an Excel sheet. But it was amazing to me how I would sit down with people and they would say, who sent you to me? Who connected us? And I would say that. And on occasion, they would go, well, how you know them? And then I would have to think back or grab my spreadsheet. And I would have to do that sometimes because I was meeting so many people, I couldn't keep up. And I would go, hold on a second. I would pull out my spreadsheet and I would look at it. One day I had a CEO reach across the table, take it out of my hand and start going through the names. And he goes, I know all these people. It was almost as if he was saying, you've met everybody in Cincinnati, and how come I'm just meeting you? Mm-hmm. So it became a way that not only I kept myself organized, it became a way that I demonstrated how serious I was about the process.
Okay, I want to home in on a couple points there because I think that's really, really key. As much as you say, you just sort of care about how it looks, you're an operations guy, you're a manufacturing guy.
The numbers matter.
You're the COO, not the CMO at Best
Thank you. Yes.
So you do care a lot about process. That is your wiring. And you're like, oh, crap, I got to get organized because, as you said, this is going to snowball. And, I think that we've talked about this before, but ultimately that became the inspiration for what is now Career Club One, which is a CRM tool to get people organized because there's so much stress around, oh my gosh, sticky notes and spreadsheets and Google Drive and notebooks and whatever. So, I mean, you were a lot of the inspiration because you showed me, hey, you can get yourself organized here. Yours was a little more DIY, but it was definitely the germ of the idea. So thank you. The second thing I wanted to comment on what you said, and we've talked about this for 10 years probably now, is I'm going to let you say your own expression here in a minute about how you go about your job search. Says a lot about.
Oh, you may finish the sentence?
Please do.
So how you go about your job search says a lot about how you'll go about your job.
Because it's basically behavioral interviewing, right? Yeah. You're not declaring, I'm an organized person, I'm a very process-oriented person, or relationships are important to me because that's how I want to make sure I know who introduced me to you, right? It's like you're literally breathing it. With what, and the guy's grabbing like, oh my gosh, show this to me. That's amazing.
Bob, the beauty of that for me is some people might disagree with this, but I think most of the people who know me would agree. I don't like to talk about myself. I don't like to talk about what I can do, what I'm capable of. That's just not fun for me. What's fun for me is just applying my passion in a way that is productive and effective. And people stand back and go, oh, this guy knows what he's doing. Or, that's my goal is that, they would have that response. And so a lot of people that go into networking, they're talking about themselves. They're listing all the things they've done. And, they lead with the resume and that's kind of where they start the conversation. I did this and I did that and I've done this and I've saved this and I've made this. I don't like doing that. Mm-hmm. I would much rather converse with you and demonstrate through the conversation, through my interaction with you, through the building of a relationship, a significant part about who I am as an executive.
Yep. So it's more demonstrate than declare, which I just think is awesome. Hunter's got a great comment here, Hunter Thurman. This reminds me of Priscilla McKinney's principle that you don't sell to your network, you sell or get a job through it. And what you're doing is exactly that. Now, I want to wind back to another point because I'm thinking about listeners, some who are with us right now and people that will be finding this podcast whenever, right? And listening to it when they've got time. You came to a place that you didn't know. You knew kind of exactly one person when you got here. And how did you just sort of mentally get geared up, girded up, whatever, to go fight that battle every day?
Yeah. So I was so glad you asked me that question. When I first came to Cincinnati, the very first person, I mentioned Mike Sipple earlier, when I sat down with him, I had decided from day one, I'm just going to tell my story. And when people want to get into what I can do, potentially for their company, I'm happy to talk about that. But I'm just going to tell my story. And the first thing that he asked me is, I talked to him. And then the first thing he said to me is, this could take a while. You live in Eastern Kentucky, 4 hours from here. And so what I'm recommending to you is you should start networking, and I'll help you with that to the extent that you want help and can take the help. But I don't know how you're going to do it. You don't even live here. And so I'm not a typical job searcher, or I wasn't a typical job searcher because I was destination job searching. Most people are either searching around home or they're willing to go somewhere.
Yes.
I was willing to only go to Cincinnati. So that question really landed on me. And what I said to him was, I burned the ships. There's an old story about Cortez who, he brings 3 ships and he lands and he looks at his first and second mate and he says, go burn the ships, because he didn't want people getting scared of what's here and running and going back home. And I decided that. I literally decided that to begin my job search, that if I'm going to Cincinnati, number one, I'm going to stop doing what I'm doing now, and I'm going to focus solely on that. That's my goal. That's my mission. I don't want any distractions, and I am all in, whatever that means. And I had no idea that it would mean I'd go to Cincinnati every single week and network for nearly 8 months, but I did. And as soon as I realized that was the priority, that's exactly what I did.
Wow. So again, for me, because this thing was job search lessons learned, hashtag burn the ships. Like I'm all in.
Yeah.
I'm all in.
That has 2 meanings, Bob. I've met with a lot of people who are networking now over the last 10 years. I get, as you know, you've sent me many, I've sent you many networkers, people in transition, so to speak. And a lot of times burning the ships for people means letting go of the hurt that got you into unemployment to begin with.
Yep. No, 100%, because, the way my observation after 10 years, again, of you dragging me into this, is fear, confusion, and bitterness. Like people really latching on to, if you knew how badly, I got treated at my last place, how unfair it was. And people will start a networking meeting like, hey, Jim, tell me about yourself. And it's just this, oh my goodness, like you have got to burn that ship and let it go. Yeah. Because it's infecting how you're communicating and the brand you're building with people. That's not the brand you want to build. Yeah. But again, back to, this is all behavioral interviewing. That's a behavior that people are exhibiting that they're not even aware of. Yeah. I was speaking with a guy, I don't know, probably 2 years ago now, and first meeting, and he was kind of going down that road. And after 10 minutes of kind of nonstop I said, please stop. I have to tell you something. And he like profusely thanked me because nobody had ever told him that before. Yeah. And the more he reflected on it, he was like, oh my goodness, like I did not know that I was doing that. I can see why so much of my previous efforts have been ineffective, because I was turning people off and I didn't even know it. Plus, it's just not healthy mentally. Like we just have to let some stuff go and move on. So that's awesome. Just super quick, how did you find Best Upon Request? I'm going to guess that concierge services wasn't on your initial target list.
So, and you mentioned something earlier I want to come back to, so I don't want to run out of time on a separate point, but you mentioned...
We'll run over if it doesn't blow you away.
No, I'm fine. You mentioned sometimes people are looking for a job pivot when they're in transition. I wasn't. Yep. I saw my skills and what I do and what I know as a transferable skill set. So I wasn't looking to go do something new. I was looking to do what I do in an environment that was conducive to what I could do for it. Yes. And with the people there. And so, yes, Best Upon Request was a complete shift in mine, from my career. I look at my career in 4 distinct buckets, basically: manufacturing, charity, restaurant business, and then hospitality or customer service, which is what we are. And so it wasn't a pivot in my mind. Different industry, yes. Same pursuit of excellence in what I do, no change. And so Best Upon Request, it's a minority-owned, woman-owned company, and I met Tilly Hidalgo Lima, the CEO, through networking. And a high-value connection that I still have breakfast with once every so often introduced me to her. He was on her board of advisors.
Got it.
And when we connected, I knew, probably before she knew, perhaps, that this was where I was going to end up. But it was the networking journey and the clarity that I got through that journey that brought me there. and helped me find the right place for me.
A couple of things. One is, was there a quote posted opening for the role that you took it?
No.
And so what happened with that? How did that role become?
There were some changes that were going to take place, or maybe, to use words I think I've heard Tilly say, needed to take place. And connecting with me perhaps prompted the opportunity.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Job search lessons learned.
There you go.
Like, for the right person, they will create the role, right? And
Absolutely.
so it's a matter of you guys finding each other. Right.
And Mike, Bob, I just need to say that I mentioned Mike Sipple a couple of times. He told me that day one.
Yep.
He said, "You're not applying for jobs, Bill. You're meeting people and ultimately giving the right person the opportunity to choose you. And it doesn't matter if there's an opening or not."
Gosh. We could just mic drop right now, because that's it. You are not applying for jobs. You are meeting people, and the right opportunity, you will find it, right? And they will find you. You know, David Houston just made a comment here a minute ago, which I think is really good. And particularly for our folks that are currently working in a role and maybe not loving it. You know, what David's saying here is never run from something, always to it, run towards. And that's one of the things I will ask people when I'm networking with them is like, you know, David, are you running from that, or are you actually running to that?
That's good.
You know, and that's can make people a little uncomfortable, but I think appropriately so. It's like, golly, maybe you're right. And if I'm being honest, I probably made a couple career moves where maybe I was more running away from than running to. So I think that's really, really apt.
Yeah.
You know, and here's Hunter now back on the point about open positions or not open positions. You know, and he's a business owner himself, saying, I've hired lots of people. I can count on one hand the number of times it was for a posted role. And I'm probably the same way myself. So, I mean, just please don't underestimate your value, right? If you know it and you can articulate it and you do the activities, the directed activities, you will find it and it will find you. I remember working with you and we were talking about like kind of what are the things that you're really good at, and, you know, like operations and process and that kind of stuff, all the things I'm terrible at, by the way. And then you're talking about your family and the real purpose for you moving, right, was because you needed to be closer to Cincinnati Children's Hospital, because that's sort of a focal point of your all's life, right? Well, there's the second big circle. And then the third circle is, you know, how can I support my family, right? And ironically, not ironically, maybe providentially, best upon request is the intersection of those three circles, because of like with the concierge service with the hospitals, that's the perfect expression of everything that you understand and empathize with.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, absolutely. So I think it's beautiful. I want to just be mindful of the time here real quick. So as you said, you kind of lived the process for 8 months. You are on everybody's short list for networking. You know, if you had to kind of distill down maybe like the top 3, that's an arbitrary number, but like, what's the primary advice you would give job seekers?
Yep. I've actually got 3 points. I'm going to go back to the pivot thing first. First of all, I think Bob, I've probably networked with, I'm going to average, I usually give a range. I'm going to say 400 people in transition in the last 10 years.
Wow.
People that have reached out to me. And I wish I had kept records and notes of that, but I didn't. I was more focused on having a cup of coffee with them at 7:00 in the morning and having a conversation.
Yep.
But the one thing I noticed that a lot of people do is they use being out of work to try to transition into a different role. And I think that's very difficult. I think it could be a mistake. Focus on what you're amazing at. Figure out how to apply those skills and abilities in whatever role. Don't paint it as a career change, because I don't think when people are out of work, maybe they got let go, they got laid off or downsized or fired for whatever reason, just a malalignment with the leadership or whatever. It's very difficult to just go and rewrite your future. You got to build upon what you got and what you know. That's one. 2, and these are the two that I love. Two is you already said it, if you're looking for a job, that is your job. And people you're networking with, people you're meeting, if they don't see you doing that job as a job, then they easily correlate that to, I don't want to work with that person. I don't want to recommend that person to work anywhere else either. So you perform in networking as though it is your job. That's two. And three, did you need me to pause there?
No.
Okay. The third one, to me, this is the big one. You touched on this in a recent LinkedIn post. I want to go back to it because it's my number one every time, and that is know your values. Yeah. Know what is important for you in a role. There's a lot of fluff written about finding the job you love and make money doing what you love. And I'm not sure I buy into that because that doesn't work for everybody. We need people working on assembly lines, putting things together. We need people delivering the mail. And I can't believe that everybody doing some of those jobs, that's exactly what they would do if they could wave a wand and do whatever they wanted to do. Yeah. That's not the point. The point is find something that you can find fulfillment in, find something that aligns with who you are as a person, as an individual. But here's how you do that. And that's what I really want to focus on.
Please.
Know your values. And I'm not talking about your morals necessarily. I'm talking about your values. What's important to you at work? How much enjoyment do you really want to get from work? I think that varies from person to person. Mm-hmm. How much of a social life do you want to have at work? Maybe you're not somebody that needs a lot of social interaction, makes you uncomfortable. Figure all that stuff out. But whatever your values are, know them. For me, and just a quick story, my personal values, faith and family. I knew that whatever job I got when I came to Cincinnati, that I needed to be in a place where the people who would hire me and the people who would work with me would appreciate that I am a leader who focuses on his faith first and then his family and then his career. And that doesn't mean that I'm not going to do a good job. If I'm focused on my faith and my family, there's a high probability that I'm going to kick my work's tail. I'm going to be serious about it. I'm going to be passionate about it. And so what I did, I built a defense around that. I built a process and I built a prevention, a way to keep myself safe from taking the wrong job. And the way I did that is I did a personal bio and described my family background. One of your and my dear friends reached out to me one day while I was networking, and he said, "Hey, Bill, I want to give you some feedback. I was looking at your resume. I had two, a resume, and an executive summary, a one-pager, and a personal bio at the top of that." That's what he was looking at. But he said, "Hey, I was reading this, and I'm reading this about your family." He said, "I'm a former business owner." He said, "There's no way I could hire you. You would bankrupt my medical plan. When I read this, I think about all the struggles you could confront. You'll never be at work." Just telling you the things run through my mind. I just wanted you to know you don't have an obligation to put that on there. And I thanked him, and I said, I'll get back to you. And I called him back in about a week or so, and I said, "Hey, I hope you received this the way I received what you said to me, and that is with gratitude and sincerity. But you affirmed for me that I've got it on there for the right reason, because I don't want to work for somebody that is worried about the cost of their medical plan. I don't want to work for somebody that wouldn't hire me because of that. I don't want to work for somebody who that's what they're thinking is, where's Bill if he's got a sick kid? Frankly, I put in as many hours as anybody. I'm as passionate about what I do and committed to what I do as anybody. If you would allow those things to keep you from hiring me, that's wonderful. Don't hire me. I don't want to work for you."
Yes.
So that was my prevention. It was working. Now, not everybody's in my situation. As a matter of fact, nobody else is probably. Figure out what is important to you and build a defense around that. Here's another final data point, Bob. It's unbelievable to me how many people I've seen go into transition, spend 3 or 4 months networking, get a job. 2 years later, they're back out on the street, calling me up again. "Hey, can we get coffee again?"
Yeah.
Why is that? It's because they didn't have their values aligned with the company they were choosing to work for and who was choosing them.
Yep.
For me, perfect alignment. I've been here 10 years. And perfect. I love as much today as I did 10 years ago, what I'm doing and the people I'm working with.
So that's phenomenal. So I heard build upon what you've got, right? Finding a job is your job, right? And know your values, because that will bring, and Markel is saying it here as well, that the values will bring your clarity. And if I could just put a little bit of a point on that, because it's what you were just saying, like with the gentleman or whoever, it's like, I don't think I want you working here. Like, you're going to bankrupt my company. Is, we talk a lot about personal branding and stuff like that. And I'm not a huge fan of that. I see people spending too much time doing fluffy things that in the name of personal branding. Real branding, is having convictions or values. I use those terms synonymously, which brings clarity, right? And like Markel is saying, clarity is just like really, really important. And part of what that means is knowing what I am, and it's knowing what I'm not. And I think that what I'm not is at least as important, right? Because that's what's going to keep you from going someplace that's not in alignment with your values. Now you know it when you see it. I'm thinking about this on the fly, but it's sort of the famous, how do they teach FBI agents or Treasury people about counterfeit stuff? They just keep showing them the real thing all the time. You'll recognize not the real thing because all you know is the real thing. If you know your convictions, you'll know when you're not seeing your convictions, when you're not seeing your values being demonstrated by somebody else.
That's a great point.
So that's phenomenal. Well, Bill, to say the least, you've met and exceeded my expectations. I was so excited about today. It felt like my birthday and Christmas and everything wrapped up into one, because you're one of my dearest friends. I love and respect you. Your story is inspiring with your commitment to your family, how important your faith is, but then the really practical things that you were talking about that I think anybody could walk away with and be able to implement today. So just a phenomenal conversation. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Likewise on the feelings. I have tremendous respect for you and what you're doing. If I could just one last farewell statement.
Give it a go.
Colossians 3:23 says, whatever you do it as if you're working for the Lord. Work Amen. As if you're working for the Lord. And so a lot of people hear the faith thing and they're like, we don't want that in the workplace, or we want to stay away from it. Let me tell you something. People who are truly committed, you can expect the best from them. And so that's the way I approach everything, whether I'm networking or doing my job or whatever. I'm just going to put it all out there.
Amen. Okay. Well, again, that's being true to yourself. And that, I believe, is why you are so successful, not despite. So phenomenal. All right. Thank you very much, Heather. I think we're about ready to wrap up, and I hope everybody enjoyed this. And thank you so much for dedicating a little bit of your day. And Bill, I will see you soon. Bless you.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Cheers.